Everybody, welcome to episode 111 of Tactical Crouch. Kickedtripod here with Yiska and Volamel. We've got a special last-minute guest. We knew that this was going to happen. We didn't know it was going to happen today. Up to about an hour ago, we didn't know it was going to happen today. But coach for the San Francisco Shock and TFTer apparently in his spare time. It's Junkbuck on the show. Welcome to the show, Junkbuck. And yes, you get the applause. He's on the show.
Our live studio audience.
Thank you.
We got a ton of challenging, revealing, and insane questions to ask you, and we're going to get to those in a second. I promise. Before we do, though, quick housekeeping things. Number one, if you like the show, find us at youtube.com/tacticalcrouch. Tune in Mondays and Wednesdays at noon to see us record live. Go to discord.me/Yiska out if you want to hang out with us in Discord. Big thanks to our patron producers, Battlecrab Pin, Lotion, Charlie L, Audio Compass, Porkchop, Sammy, Kasha67, Coochie Kopi, Shara Picasso, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Refined Bean, Rex Zane, Roger B, Fabled, Steven, and Owen. Thank you so much for your support of the show. If you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Boom. Time me. What was that? 1 minute, 51 seconds.
Through this.
That was not bad.
What's faster, an Ocarina of Time speed run or John getting through the patron results? Find out next week. You know, it's getting faster every week.
112, baby.
It's the one thing
Never seen a 113 in my life.
It's the one thing I can do right. All right. Junkbuck, on to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is your show. The reins are being passed as we speak, if you will. And we have so many places to start. I mean, first of all, congrats on a huge weekend.
Yes.
Thank you.
Like a huge. So
Easy
you are
2-0.
the first team now, right, in the Overwatch League to have swept every other team. And how does that one feel?
Well, like for me personally, I don't think about like those kind of things at all. Actually, like I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I was sweeping like every single team or things like that. So I don't think too much about it. I think like for me, like any kind of win is a valuable win. Sweeping or 3-2, it's all for me. They're both very valuable.
Fair enough. So you don't like to just like kind of elbow drop your teammates? Preferred the elbow drop versus the 3-minute timed pin?
Well, like if the game gets close, it can be like watching from like the coach's room during the match is like super stressful. I'm pretty sure this is like everybody says like watching is actually gonna be more stressful than the playing. So, but then sometimes I think maybe we make it too easy and not as entertaining for the viewers. Maybe
Pull a Shanghai, toss in a couple extra people, and then reel it back in once you're down 0-2. Give the fans, yeah, let the fans be entertained. Let the gladiatorial arena cheer when Shock emerges victorious and the head of their enemies is put on a spike.
It's actually more satisfying if the games are actually more closer. Actually,
yeah.
It's actually more satisfying.
I've got to imagine as a coach, it's just like nerve wracking. You're like, well,
Yeah.
But the payoff, it's the payoff.
Definitely a payoff. You're invested emotionally at that point. Obviously as a coach, you're probably invested a lot more than just fans. But
it's probably the stage 2 finals was probably more satisfying than the grand finals actually.
Ooh, okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You're not the only person to have said that. I think even from coaches, I think it was Christopher who was on the show and said like he obviously is not a coach for either of the teams involved. He goes, but like those as a coach, those wins are like far more exciting and satisfying. So that's pretty cool. Yiska,
It was our first major win. It
Yeah.
was super close. It was a revenge match. Yeah.
I went to a
Means a
couple of the
lot.
watch parties in stage 1 and stage 2 last year because we just moved out to the Bay Area, so there was stuff going on here, and I was there for that. I was there for I think it was the first Titans game where you guys lost. I think it was 3-1.
Stage 1.
Yeah, stage 1. I think it was.
Yeah,
And,
stage 1 we lost.
It was at a bowling alley. It was a ton of fun, even though we
Still,
lost.
legendary match. Like,
Really great.
even
match.
thinking back on it, like, I wish we could get matches that close every week. That would be killer. Obviously, not with Shock
We
losing,
kind of
but
did. We kind of
I mean,
did
this week wasn't bad, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. But
Not with the
yeah.
stakes, of course. Yeah.
No. The trilogy of Shock and Titans is that'll be I mean, you're a part of history. Like that'll be things. Hopefully, knock on wood, we talk about 5 years down the line. You know, Junkbuck,
That was a super good match. Yeah.
just insane. Super fun to be able to witness and say that we were there live and got to talk to you. So
Was there like an idea last season of just like wanting to hunt the Titans after stage 1? Was that like we're going to catch up to these guys?
We were always thinking about, like, ever since we lost the stage 1 finals, all the guys were just all they were thinking about was like just having the revenge on them. So yeah, we definitely want to beat Titans again.
Very good.
it's kind of it in a way. Obviously, this has been kind of kicked enough in the community around, you know, the Titans obviously dispersing and the story around that. But it's kind of sombering to look at this season and be like, oh well, you know, what if we see, you know, a Titan Shock rematch again? And it's kind of disappointing that we don't get to see that. But maybe one day down the road, you know, we in 2025 we get to a show match between the old Titans and the old Shock team and break out
We'll do like the
scrims and whatnot.
an Apex type of thing that they just did, right? You just do the same
That'd be
thing.
cool.
Oh yeah, they love like do it for like World Cup weekend or something.
Sure. Kick it off.
That
I
would
think
be
it'd be
fun.
sick.
Yeah. We'll bring back the goats.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
No. Boo.
Who would you say is currently the enemy? Is it just the field, or do you have like a team where you say, oh, we want to play those guys, or they are our closest competition?
No, I think like it's a super competitive season where like everybody can beat another team. So it's like we don't have like a specific team, but like we have group of teams that are super strong. So it's like it's anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. What about the Asian region? How do generally? I feel like also because of the recent recruitments that that division in particular has done, Spark has gotten a lot better. NYXL as well. We've seen like Guangzhou kind of getting everyone back together, and then also Shanghai just being very solid. Is there like how do you evaluate the strength of that region? And
I think everyone, even Chengdu, I feel like every team has their like super like a strength. Like like I think every one of them is like really good. Like Guangzhou, like Hangzhou is really. They have our player now, Architect. They have to be good. So they're
true.
They're super good. What was it? Shanghai is like super good. New York is also super good. And then Guangzhou, we didn't actually get to scrim that much. So I don't know that much, but I know they're gonna be just good. They have Happy and Nero. They're like such a good players. They have to be good. And then even Chengdu, like even they almost beat Shanghai, right? Like if this world, if they just did one more fight better, maybe they could have kept. So if like Chengdu, like even last season, like we lost to Chengdu once. Like Chengdu is like one of those teams that like they can always beat you. Like you have to, and then it's so hard to like it's different this season, but they were so hard to prepare last season. So it's like I think the region as a whole, like Asia region, is like really really strong.
Do you kind of look forward to a future where you kind of get everybody back in the same place, or at least have the ability to kind of be able to play the field?
I think if the season went as scheduled without the COVID, then I think it would have been like super fun actually.
I think it'd been a super interesting time to see you guys, you know, in China and playing some of these Asian teams and be like, all right, well, who is it? Is it Shanghai? Is it Shock? You know, who's the best right now? Because we have like two Titans, no pun intended, but two Titans in the scene right now, and it's like, do we get to see them in the playoffs? Like, it's in a weird way, it's kind of not funner, but like it makes you want to watch more and be like, okay, like let's.
Yeah,
see,
I think it builds the hype. So it builds the hype.
It feels like it's Worlds, like we're approaching, you know, our own version of Worlds, where it's like, okay, now we're gonna see everybody, the best teams. This is it. Like you put up or shut up, and it's gonna be a fun one. I think this year's, in a weird way, as how crazy it's been. I think we're gearing up for one of the best finals that we'll get. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and hopefully you guys are there.
The crazy thing is that we talked about the Asian region, and one team we completely avoided talking about, which is in a superposition of both the best Asian team and the worst Asian team. What do you make of the Seoul Dynasty? What's going on there? And
I actually just forgot to talk about them, but I think they're like really good. Prophet and Gesture, like I know like Gesture's been like talked like lowly a lot depending on the meta, but I think Gesture in general is like actually really good. Prophet's also like, I think Prophet's one of those players where he has the highest cap for any heroes. He just needs time to grind it. So as long as he has the time to grind it, he'll probably has the highest cap of like one of the highest cap of all the players. So that team, I think, it's like still a really, really good team.
Yeah.
They seem to be finding their footing. I didn't think their match versus the Charge was that disappointing. I think they played really well throughout all 5 games, and I think it could have gone either way by the end of it.
They're so on and off. There's like so much things that happens within the team that you can never know. Like, so even if you have like the best players, like somehow it could go wrong. So never know what's happening within that team. But they're like really strong team. I feel.
Do you like, now that there's 2 weeks Hero Pools, is watching the Asian matches in week 1 of the Hero Pools, is that a viable source for you to scout in? Like, just to get some ideas from there?
We always I always watch them, like even if it's like 1 week, like just like so, you know, usually it's their match and then our match, so I'll just like stay up or wake up really early to watch their game before we go into our game to see if there's like any concept that we could take, any like I call it, there's like a word in Korean that I don't know how to say in English, but it's like a theory or philosophy or like a ideology, like on how you play the game, like in each comp, and what your roles are on each hero, and then like the interpretation of that is like so different within the teams. So like I always like to watch the Asia games. So
yeah. In that way, do you think, or where are your thoughts leaning towards? Not divulging any secrets and you know, saying anything you shouldn't, but how much will the meta change coming into next week with the removal of the hero pools going into the showdown? What does that look like in your mind?
Like, I mean, if there was no patch, then it would have been like still Orisa Sigma Poke Comp, some variation of that. But then I think with the Genji changes, we'll have to see. Like,
interesting.
Genji, if it's enough to change the meta where we'll be just going full dive with the Winston Genji, or we're still gonna have the Orisa Sigma with the Genji, or if Genji gets played at all, we'll have to scrim to know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We did, speaking of the Genji, we did see, you know, Striker come out and show a little bit of Genji towards the end of the Justice match.
Yeah, that was one of the best Genjis in the world.
It was interesting. I'm not surprised. I think Striker, you know, very, very talented player, can do a lot of things. But is that kind of the thought process moving forward with the roster? Is he going to be kind of taking up that extra space now that, you know, Architect and obviously Sinatra have kind of, you know, departed?
Everything we'll have to see the value in the scrims. Like no matter what kind of patches comes, like no matter how much we like to like guess. Like within the scrim, it gets changed so much within the scrims. Depends on the scrims.
Fair enough.
See, that is Junkbuck just laying the breadcrumbs, just like for Chris. Hey, Chris, you know the Genji is very, very strong now. Maybe we will in that upcoming match just counter strike this. Yeah,
it is. Speaking of, like,
coming up, right?
That's a huge match coming in, like last match of the week. Like you couldn't paint it any better. You can't write this stuff. So, what is that kind of? Is that looming on your mind? What are you doing anything differently to prepare for the shock?
For me personally, like usually I don't think much about the opponents. I don't think much about like how I didn't think much of the record about the sweeps and things like that. Like how I approach the game is like usually the same like every week. So I don't think much outside other than what's the best thing to play, what's the best way to play. Things like that. Yeah, we just see them as like any other team that we have to like analyze and know what will be good for us. Yeah.
How has that approach changed? Of course, between season 2, where we could just one trick, one meta, and now coming into Hero Pulse. Did you have to have a switch in mentality how you approach scrims and like? Of course, you gotta somehow conceive of a comp that you want to run. I imagine that is pretty much implied that you have to think there differently. But from a philosophical or like systematic approach, did your thinking change?
Well, it's like we definitely went through a lot of trial and errors on how we balance each other's roles. But like my coaching style in general fits this meta more actually, because like last season I would say it's more about like refinement. It's like more like we're building something. So if I were to make a comparison, we're more like a designer, or like a house designer, or like an architect, where there's like a blueprint of what's standard, what's good, and then we just constantly refine it. But now we're like more of we constantly make arrangements. Like let's say we're like the conductor at like an orchestra. There's like different piece of stuff where we just like constantly, or it's just constant arrangement. So, but then for me I always had a strength in like the arrangements. But then we had a lot of difficulties in the beginning that week where we lost. So we had to make a lot of like balancing how we tackle on each other's roles. And I think that's usually true in every season. Like whenever there's like a new season, in the beginning we have a lot of trouble because we're trying to like know how much of a presence we should have in each other's roles, and then after a lot of like trial and errors we figure it out. And then once we settle in, I think it's a very how I like describe it as ambiguous, but it's like I think as much that's as specific.
You paint a pretty interesting picture. I wanted to ask you, kind of not to completely derail the subject, but this is kind of the second time I've heard this kind of pop up just in the short time talking to you. Would you consider yourself a very kind of conceptual person? Do you think about a lot of things a lot of the time? Like, do you kind of paint a lot of metaphors? That would like the conductor kind of motif was very interesting. Do you find yourself kind of explaining things to players through ways that are easier for them to understand?
No, in game I'm like very direct on like very specific, but like this for this in general, because I didn't want to talk about like too specific, so I tried to so I thought of a way to make it as like vague, like general as possible. So that's how I came up with the motif. Yeah.
Could you like maybe from a very early into Hero Pulse or something that probably doesn't have value anymore? Could you like in an example explain what exactly your task is with the shock? Like what kind of a coach you are? Because coaching in Overwatch is like, this guy's an assistant coach. Okay, so what does he do? Like, is he more like a drill sergeant? Is he more like a macro guy, micro guy? These type of things. How would you describe your role?
I think the best way I could talk about will be like we're very free in how we wanna do our job. We're like very free. We're like so it was more about us on our own, like trying to find the space within each other. So you can say like we do a lot of each other's job. So we don't have like a specific job put onto us, but it's the trial and error is a lot about how we find space within each other. Yeah.
Is there then something that maybe only you do, or only Krusty would do, or like just like things where you clearly distinguish yourselves from?
No. I don't think we have a thing where only one of us has to do the certain things.
Interesting.
It's not like a really regimented. It's pretty
very open.
Sounds like you like there's like an analyzation of the situation, and then just like a delegation of like in this situation,
kind of by committee.
This is the best route moving forward.
We're just constantly talking to each other about everything. So we're not very bounded by anything. Yeah.
How are these conversations like? What's the atmosphere? Is it heated? Is it like just like calm?
Oh, it depends. Like it gets. I'm not sure if anyone talked about this, but within this gaming stuff, like coaches and even a lot of players are very adamant. If that's in a good way. In a bad way, it's like people are often very stubborn. So it can get very, very heated. So that's when it gets like very inefficient. We need to find the balance. We need to find that's where the trial and error goes through, things like that. Yeah.
Regardless of if it's a player or a coach or maybe even a member of the Shock's management, is there somebody who tends to step in those kind of heated discussions, be like, whoa, come on, like this is not productive. Let's focus on what we're doing. Is there anybody that kind of like is the fire or the water to the fire?
We find balance among ourselves.
Ah, okay, that's good.
Yeah, among ourselves. Yeah, that's why there was a lot of trial and error.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's can we pivot to some roster topics here and talk about
Sure.
So the San Francisco Shock, you guys made the decision to bring on Twilight and a arguably already stacked roster. Can you tell us more about the decision to bring him on, and as like if you were looking at any other Titans to bring onto those Shock after you wiped the floor with them last year at Grand Finals?
For me, I mean, from a coach's perspective, more player the better, like. But then reality is that can't happen. We're also like we also feel so bad for the players who has to be in the bench for too long. But then having a Twilight has like a really specific goal, right? Purpose. We have like anyone can see that specific purpose for bringing in Twilight. So I think nobody in the team will be like very against it. Nobody in the team will be like afraid that I'll be benched and I'll never get to play. No, it won't be something like that. Everyone knows that it's very specific. They're gonna know their role, and then even if having a Twilight, it's not gonna make anyone feel bad. And then I think having even what else was there? Oh, and then for bringing any other Titans, I didn't think much of other. We didn't think that much about it about other people members. Yeah, we were mostly thinking about Twilight. Yeah,
I know that Yiska's brought this up quite a lot. And maybe I might be jumping ahead of him here, but with working with Twilight and in the time that you have been, we've heard a lot about his kind of thought process of the game, and heard kind of glowing and very positive reviews of how he thinks about the game. Is that something that you've seen so far? Is that something you could see maybe him transitioning into in one day and maybe being a very effective coach?
Twilight?
Yeah.
actually, I haven't seen that much yet.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure. Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm not sure. I mean, if anyone within our there's like I actually think about it a lot as well. Like, this player might be good at coaching. This player might be good at coaching. From our team, I think Choi and Rascal probably are gonna be really good coaches. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like the interesting thing about Twilight was, of course, like last weekend you pretty much played a full Korean roster. I think was it the entirety of the match that you played for Korean? There's a
watching the match in the first map, Super played, and then Moth played.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what's the like? There's two questions that spawn for me from there, because for one, like the way we from the outside always conceptualized your team was that in many ways Moth was just like as someone who gives structure to comms, and what he brings to comms was almost essential to your success. And then you bring Twilight in and take, like, for us, possibly also for other teams, they would probably take the hit in terms of like the ability to play flex support and would just have their shot caller there, right? Like, for instance, for Florida, Chris still plays these types of situations where Byron doesn't slip up and whatnot. How does that decision match out, and what does Moth actually bring to the roster? How is that replaceable? And then how does Twilight fit in there?
I don't think any player is replaceable. I think everybody has their own really unique strength. Nobody's replaceable. We just play differently. So Moth has been really essential. Like even like so. A lot of people know, but a lot of people don't know. So for people who don't know, like Moth, he's really good at what's shown on the screen, but then it's even like greater what's not shown on the screen. So he has been such an essential part. It's like one of the reasons why we won the whole thing last year. So not having a Moth in, then we just have to just play differently. The other people can fill it in that gap. Everybody pitches in to help what's missing from not having Moth, and then it's a different. We'll just play with a different dynamic.
Mm-hmm. So the shot calling responsibilities are then not necessarily on Twilight, but are also moved to the other players that are probably more tenured in the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't like to have just one person shot calling everything. Everyone has to shot call.
Sure. No, that's definitely the case. It's just like, for instance, things we heard about Moth is just like, okay, he's like his ability to just learn whatever the coach, like he's like an extended arm of the coach in the specific roster, and he will just have this ability to just like study notes or whatever, like to an insane degree.
He memorizes everything we told him. Like he's such a smart guy. Like he's like the one guy we can rely on to remember something we told the guys in the game.
Do you have moments like that where you're in the dugout that you're like you're cheering that like Moth's bringing up something that you guys told him? You're like,
all the time.
That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah.
I know somebody in chat wanted to kind of chime in and mention something about one of the new coaches this year, I believe, Arachnia joining from Talon. Could you talk about him, his coaching style, philosophy, what he adds to the shock?
He's the best assistant coach in the league. It used to be 9K, but he's not anymore. It's Arachnia.
There we go.
It's like everyone has such a unique ideas, their own ideology of the game on how to play the game. It's always so refreshing. Like the more voices you have, as long as you know how to like balance them out, as long as you know how to like utilize them, then having more voices, it's the better it is. So awesome. Arachnia brings us so many good ideas. Like a lot of the metas actually, that it's not really played a lot, but then like the idea of playing like the Orisa Rhine with the Orisa Rhine rush comp with like the sniper, Arachnia told us we should try that, things like that. Like he gives us like really good ideas. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I think also an unfortunate, and of course you kind of have to be the person that cares for these accolades, but like an unfortunate byproduct of having been with Krusty, who came from Boston, had great success there, left, with him, Boston success left, and then he came to the Shock. Of course, you guys had great success there. So from the outside, for fans and including us, like that don't know any coaching styles, it's always like this is the one constant in these teams, right? So what do you think? Do you think there's a special attribute to Krusty that makes him able to build these coaching staffs as well? Like, is there?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I think
in what sense?
he's the best head coach in the league. He can like everyone is gonna learn so much from him. He has I can't get too deep in about his style because I don't want to like misinterpret him. So but then it's like but what I can say is very charismatic. He's also a very funny guy with the players. In general, he's like a really nice guy. So and then so it's just being just being in the team with him, everyone's gonna definitely learn a lot.
Is his cooking as good as everybody says it is?
Yes, his cooking is really good. Everyone likes his cooking. He enjoys cooking. It's like he's a really nice guy.
Did the players do the dishes?
Yeah, so everyone after everybody eats, they'll just do the rocks, paper, and who has to do everything.
Good.
Fair enough.
Very good.
All right. So, any other roster questions that you guys have for Junkbuck?
I think it'd kind of be remiss if we didn't bring up Ons and talk about, you know, exactly how you guys, maybe not exactly how you guys scouted him, but, you know, from a player who kind of had some very surprising performances on Blossom and being known for his hit scan prowess. What was kind of go ahead.
One thing I can say is like Krusty is like actually really good at scouting too. So and then it was Krusty who found Rance, and then he definitely. So I'm always the guy who I can. The one thing I can say is like I'll definitely always try to constantly question to make sure it's right, whether if it's wrong. And then Krusty was like super sure about ants. And then once he came to the team, I also felt like, he was the perfect fit. It was a really great pickup. So yeah.
Very interesting.
Like one of you already mentioned this concept, and it's especially like I always thought like one of the biggest aspects that you really excelled at and to a point pioneered is having these big rosters where it seems like even players that in past teams had like a propensity to really dislike when they weren't the starters and really get frustrated in these situations. You kind of like, for instance, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus there, but I for instance, would think that, for instance, someone like Striker really needs to know who he is in the team. So the true question is, how do you compartmentalize and just say, okay, you do this, and if this happens, you're in? And what happens, like, for instance, let's say you tell Striker, okay, if we ever play Tracer, you're going in. But what if you play scrims and there's actually another player that excels at Tracer more than him? Would that be something that would have to be negotiated again? Would you then say, okay, you're still playing that role, and we're helping you to catch up to speed? What's the process like there?
I mean, I think the team culture itself, like we're all playing for each other. We all really like each other so much. So nobody likes getting benched. But then we also we really like each other as well. So being on the bench is gonna be really sad. It's gonna feel bad. But because our team culture was built by Chris to be like really be like a family, be really like for the team, right? So I think everybody's really good with it. Like everybody understands.
Sweet. Yeah. Like that in itself, just the ability to make that work when it really didn't work for many teams is really one of your strengths that also helped you and also to a degree, like helped you with hero pools. And if none of you guys have any additional questions in terms of roster, I would just transition into that topic. And
what a transition.
Okay, so hero pools comes around. You probably didn't know in any sooner than any other team. What was your first impression like of hero pools? Were you specifically like going, "Oh yeah, this is my strength, huzzah," and how did the team receive it?
I like people are talking about bans. I like bans is like one thing that I really didn't want to. Bans were, but so I was thinking about maybe, but then if they were to like rotate around like heroes, then it'll be really good. So, but then rather than rotating around like specific group of heroes, they rotate around bans, which is also fine because rather than have us like don't know what we'll be playing the next week, I think it's better to know what we're actually playing that week. It's so much better. Like us randomly banning one hero and then practicing without knowing why we wouldn't know what to get to play. That would be like the worst thing. That would be the worst case scenario. Okay. Hero pool is off. I really like it. It's fun. It could be really fun for the viewers. Just that I always thought when they first announced like 1 week, it was like for me, I was like, oh, that's way too short. Like there was like a lot of opinions like with especially among the Korean players and the staffs were like the 1 week is way too short. It has to be like a month. But I think Blizzard listened and then we were able to compromise to 2 weeks for now. Maybe if that's even too short, maybe it could still get changed. But I think I'm satisfied with 2 weeks for now. Yeah.
What has the transition been like? Do you feel like you're much less stressed last Monday after like having seen that's what everyone
yeah, definitely. I'm way less stressed. I think I think one of the things that doesn't get talked about, but that actually what stresses out the most, not just the staffs but for the players as well, is for that 1 week. Let's say you have a match, you have 1 day up Monday, and then you have a match on Saturday. That's like 4 days of practice, right? So like you have to figure something out within 4 days. So every scrim is like we constantly try something new, constantly trying something new. But then at one point it becomes so that everyone feels uncertain. And then if you feel uncertain about your ability or your what's right or wrong, if you're that stresses you out mentally so much. I think that's one of the biggest factor for the burnout as well. It's like we have to play in such a constant uncertainty, and then that makes us like less confident. It makes us that's the biggest thing. We're less confident, so uncertain about the future. Like that's what stresses that itself stresses us out so much. Rather than like also having to practice more, like the physicality. It's rather than the physicality, the mentality of uncertainty.
On an average week, what do you think? What's the day where you usually figure out, okay, that's what we're going to play this weekend?
You never know. It just depends. Like some teams can get lucky and find out within 2 days. Some teams, like for us, even for us, like oftentimes we'll like find it out the day before the match. It was It was so rough. Like it was so stressful. Never want to have 1 week again.
Do you think some of the losses? I actually can't remember if your losses came at the hands of hero pools, but would you say like catching in an unlucky hero pool definitely determined the winner? Some of the matches.
Not for our loss. It was the 1 week had to do a little bit part of it, but it's also on us as well. We did bad. Other team played better, so that's we lost because of we did bad.
Do you feel like you guys, the coaching staff in particular, and yourself obviously, do you feel like you've had an easier time, or you feel like you've gotten better at determining or projecting what like the archetype or the style might be for each week or every 2 weeks now? Is it becoming a little bit easier? Have you seen some improvement on that front? or is it just completely like maybe it's Torb, maybe it's not? I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow.
So I think if once everybody figured out like Ash Tracer Echo was OP, like if whatever that doesn't get among those three is gonna get played. So at that point it got easier. But then before the Echo Tracer Ash dominant times, it was like really like it was nobody knows. It was so hard to know what's good, what's bad.
Yeah.
But once we know what if there's like a certain group of heroes that like Orisa Sigma is gonna be the best tank duo. Those three DPS is always gonna be the strongest, and then the supports whatever tank and DPS we play, we just fit in that support.
And that's the interesting thing I think between the two regions is that Asia would probably give you a little bit of a different answer depending on who you ask, right? Like Tracer would probably be replaced by Sombra. How did you?
Oh, that
does that
part,
make any sense? Or
no. So Sombra makes sense as well. I think so. It has to. We have to play against each other because you know how we talked. I talked earlier. I talked about like the ideology of how teams interpret how to play the comp. So if their team has that interpretation, and then if they can beat our interpretation, then we'll probably play that. But then since no. We actually tried their comp as well in the scrims as well, but then our interpretation was not good as the Tracer interpretation, so we ended up playing their Tracer. So maybe if the other team interprets it, they were able to make it work better than the Tracer. And then once we play against that, then we'll for like to know fully like I actually have to like see it in my scrim like. That's because I also hear our players' perspective, our players' calls. So from their perspective, I'll be able to interpret how they like how effective what they're doing, how effective it is what they're doing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In kind of an interesting way, not to cut Yiska off, but the Charge are doing something not similar, but they have their own kind of look at this Ash Tracer. Now they're playing Ash Soldier. Does that kind of pique your interest? Like, could you?
No, Ash Tracer. No, Ash Tracer. No.
That's the go-to. It's just if it's open, you play it, and if not, you figure something else out. Soldier is nowhere.
Lose to a Soldier in scrims to fully realize it, but then from just from looking at it, no.
Okay, fair enough. You need not say more. I completely.
Soldier has such a specific weakness, specific strength that it gets counters super easily. But then if certain heroes gets banned, he can be played.
Right.
So. But none of those heroes are banned. So
what were you gonna say, Yiska? I didn't mean to.
No. I thought like it's interesting because for a long time I had this theory that just as much as meta is an expression of what is actually good theoretically in the game, there's also like this social aspect of having practiced that. And then also, for instance, like Christopher from the Fusion gave us this idea, and I think it's a very interesting thinking tool to think about this. So like he thinks of teams as to have like a bar chart of the compositions that they run. So for instance, one team is very good at rush and have a high bar chart there. And then some of them are very good at dive and these types of like poke and whatnot, right? So, and whatever your bar chart is the highest at, you will probably at least try to make it work to a degree. Do you think like for now, this Ash Tracer Echo stuff is a social thing, or is that actually really okay? This game is balanced in a way that these three heroes, with the time we also have, is actually the best that we can play.
So going along with what Christopher said, so in the end, it's about like what are your highest chance of winning. So certain teams, so let's say poke is the strongest, but then your team is so good at your bar at the rush is so strong. But then is your team still have a higher chance of winning against the poke comp with your rush, even though rush poke is a better comp, just because your bar on the rush is strong. So and then if you're higher, then you'll be playing rush. But if your winning chances are lower, then you'll just, even if you're better at rush, you'll be playing poke, right? So that's how we interpret. That's how I feel interpret those metas. So social thing, it could be social, but then in a way it's social because within the scrims, if that had the highest win rate, so then that among us, because that had the highest win rate among us, that gets played. But then if other region, the other stuff among them, that has the highest win rate, so they don't play it. So that's in a way that's also social aspect of it. Is how I see that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like if we stick to the bar chart or like description, how would you rate your bar charts, like in the compositions? Like what's
top every day. Top dive, top rush, top poke. Let's go. We have the best players. Yep.
Very nice. Like, is there not a comp that you generally gravitate to and just say, okay, it's Monday, let's try this first? It usually works for us.
Oh no. We kind of look back on the bans and see. Also, when this got banned, this was predominantly used. Let's try that. We'll be like that. Not we don't think about since we're good at poke, let's try poke this week. No, we don't do that.
Like one thing that was interesting, and I won't talk which team said this, but there was a team that because of like bench management, they actually actively, especially in a week where maybe their opponent wasn't the best, they tried to find a meta solution where they could just force this bench player to get some playtime. Is this ever a consideration, or is it just like maximizing win rate every single game?
That's also trial and error. Last year it worked better. This year, we have to do that a bit differently. So how much time we wanna give bench players, how much play time for the sake of keeping them in good shape, things like that. It's like you have to go a lot of trial and error to get that balance.
Is there like so for instance like that we're all about the mental models that Christopher spins on this show, but he talked about the Torb virus. So the Torb virus is basically like a week where someone found out Torb was good on Thursday, and then it spread everywhere.
I feel like it was Thursday. Yeah. For us too. I think it was Thursday for us. Yeah.
So has there ever been a consideration of like, okay, let's contain actually this Scrim Bubble so it doesn't get out, and our opponents are constantly like surprised by what we're running, and you're just going to have like 4 of the best teams and you're just scrimming each other?
I think that's like super hard to do, like given the structure. Like let's say you want to contain it just among certain teams, but then that's also not realistically, because we get like scrims ahead of time, like so far in the future. For the future, it's like so hard to get that group of people, as well as like if you don't want to show your strats, it's so hard to hide the strats, because to know that your strat is good, you have to like test it against other teams. So so I think it's better to just be good at what everybody plays than have like your own little cheese. I think that you can't win a championship with that mindset.
How often has San Francisco Shock actually innovated the meta in the sense that you came up with a comp and then that became the thing, and how often did you copycat?
We kind of spread bad viruses before. we were surprised. Oh, you guys actually played that in the match. Whoops. And then they lost. We definitely have. We have definitely spread some bad viruses before. But I think we're not. I think nobody can be really considered as like the pioneers of the meta, because like you're lucky if you get like meta right or not. So it's like usually it's just like a little bit of it stacks like a little bit from that team, little bit from that team. So and then everybody sees that, and then everybody just takes it, and then that becomes usually meta. So nobody is like a super pioneer. I think Torb was like the pioneer, but that's like the one-time thing, right? So So it's like a little bit of from each team that gets built upon.
There's one person in chat, Flower Case, and he asked why Shock was playing Soldier.
It's literally just a lowercase. There's no F in that.
Oh, lowercase. Sorry,
It's just
that's a spot on my. It's a
just
spot.
a one. Jeez.
Come on, there's
Old man.
Okay,
Old man.
I'll make it vague.
I got you,
Okay, it's
lowercase. I got you.
Oh,
Wait,
the
it's still
Nepal
there.
Sanctum.
Yeah.
Oh,
So they're talking about Nepal Sanctum when we were playing Torb Soldier Poke. Why were we playing it? That's also trying and error. We lost to Soldier. We lost to a Soldier. We copied Soldier. We were doing good, and then we lost to Ash. So now we're playing Ash. Simple as that. Soldier in general is in general like weak against snipers. So, but then like Sanctum, like teams are playing a lot of different stuff. You could get like rush, you could get like dive. You don't know. So, but then since everybody plays sniper, we don't play soldier anymore.
Is that like? I imagine none of the coaches actually book the scrims, but do you sometimes go like, okay, maybe less of those, more of those?
Oh no, our team actually the coaches book the scrims. So
okay, interesting.
Yeah. So like, and then who booked the scrims always changes within our team. And
Pass the duties around.
No double
yeah,
booking
we fist.
going on.
We fist. If someone fucks, oh shit. Can I? Is it okay to curse in the stream? Or is it friendly? Okay. So sometimes we mess up. If someone messed up, we're like, okay, I'll do it this time. If someone messed up, okay, I'll do it this time. It's more of a like, and for, but then we try to like. We want. There are certain teams that we should scrim this team this time or that team this time. There are things like that depending on who we're facing for that week.
Is there like a team that you like to scrim that is pretty good in scrims but doesn't necessarily perform like that in matches?
Ever since the hero post, like the scrim results are so on and off. Like Dallas can be gods one week and then they're perform so poorly the next day, or the Mayhem are the gods this week and then they perform so poorly the other time. It's like so on and off. You never know.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you ever off in scrims where you're like, oh, we didn't give these guys any good scrims?
The shocks are never off. We're always on top on everything. I'm just kidding. We're like, we're gonna have bad days. We're gonna have bad days too. But yeah.
What's your idea? Like, of course, a lot of the time, like, there's like, I had this meme where it's like, there is something called scrimmeth, where like just based on, if you were to sum up the win rate that two teams have against each other, it would always exceed 120%. As in, like, if I ask you how often do you win scrims against Philly, you would say 70%. Then I go to Philly and ask how many.
That's so true. That's so true.
And they would say 60%.
I would get like so pissed. Like, but I would say I'm very objective when it comes to that. So okay. I think I do a very good job of doing it. But then like people often do say that, like, so they say, oh shit, why did they have to say that? Like, we actually didn't win that much. So
is that something you look at, like win percentages? Do you go hard in scrims actually with the objective to win every single one?
It's also, you have to like be able to good at interpreting the results. Like, just because you have a high win rate doesn't mean much. It's about how you win, what you did to win, what are the win rates when you did this, rather than just like a flat win rate. Like, was the win rate good when we did this? Or like, you gotta like use that. You gotta be good at interpreting the results. So just a flat win rate doesn't mean much.
Oh my god, I can't get away from Christopher, but his ideas are just such a good framework. But with bouncing around these topics, because like, and I've also talked to a bunch of other coaches, to be fair. Like, I talked to DePay about it. I remember talking to Mineral about it. I think even Harsha or Dream, I don't know. But like, some of the coaches are very convinced of the topic of confidence, going with confidence into a match, and like having good scrim results also in win rates, just like to boost confidence. Is your do you think there's something to it, and is your confidence relying necessarily on the win percentage of your scrims, or is it more like you objectify, okay, we did very well here even though we lost?
I mean, we want to objectify, but then the reality is like you have to win the scrims to have confidence, and then confidence actually transition into your performance in the match. So that part is really true. I'm pretty sure everybody's trying hard to like objectify it, but then like like everybody like it's very rare to have players who perform similarly with the scrim and the match. Most people play differently, but I think we have like a good batch of players who like performs the same no matter what the environment is. So whether we lose or win, a lot of our guys perform similarly, but then there's always gonna be a factor where for some people, like if we win scrims, they're just gonna perform better in matches. That's for sure. Yeah.
How are you guys like we've heard that some people had a very different feeling towards playing these official matches because they aren't on LAN and not in front of a crowd. How have you guys coped? Is there like, is this a problem at all for your players? Are some of them maybe even relieved not having to play in front of a crowd? Or
no, I think it's good for the other teams. I think we play greater on the stage. I think other teams play worse on the stage. So it's an advantage for the other teams where they can just relax at home. But then if they were to go on the stage, they're gonna be like super nervous. I think Mayhem. I feel like Mayhem was like super nervous. I think they'll be like super nervous about playing on the stage, like those because especially they have a lot of new players. So those kind of teams, like definitely, it's gonna be nervous on the stage.
Yeah, and that's of course we don't know what's happening there in the future and how the playoffs are coming around. But I feel like this is actually a wild card scenario where, let's say, for instance, just theoretically and not leaking, this is not one of those breadcrumb
get ready to clip it, chat.
No, get out. Where it's like, okay, for instance, what if we actually can all fly out people to Korea and we can have finals there? Maybe not in front of a crowd, but at least physically present, and that kind of changes. Also, like, of course, the ping would change for a lot of players, which is a huge deal, and like the environment changing. I think that could be theoretically like a pretty big impact on teams. So do you think like this would create scenarios where maybe not necessarily your team, but like some teams just have breakout performances or really upsetting performances depending on the environment and the ping and everything that goes with it?
Very, very possible. Very, very possible. So I wish we play the playoffs in front of a huge crowd, actually. So as big as possible. Just the more people, the more nerve-wracking it is, the better for our team.
Okay. Yep. Is that just by the nature of what kind of players you recruited, or have you built up this mental?
We definitely built that up. We're used to the pressure. We're used to the environment. More than the other teams for sure.
Is there anybody that you maybe see or see essences of in reflecting that same kind of mental toughness where you're like, I don't know about that Seoul Dynasty team on LAN, they might be, or the London Spitfire? Is there another team that you feel like kind of rises to the occasion when it comes to big performances like that?
Well, like the Seoul Dynasty has proper gesture. I think they're one of those players that perform better under pressure as well. So I mean they'll be okay. Or like what else? Like Philly, they've been to finals. Carpe been on a huge stage multiple times. They'll be okay. I mean there's like those teams with older players that have been under pressure a lot and then still performed well. They're gonna still be good on the stage.
Did you then? Was that the progression that you needed from stage 1 last year to stage 2? Was there stage fright or like anxiety or anything like that in stage 1?
The players didn't show it that much, but then like some of them did say now we experienced the final one time. No, there's no way we're gonna lose it again. So there's always that. And then like I think we were able to show it in the stage 3. We were down 3 maps, but we were able to come back to the last. So our guys are really good at playing under pressure.
That's the scary thing for me around Shanghai is not necessarily that they are dominant in that region, but that they also have this uncanny ability to just come back from behind, and they've repeatedly done that, right?
Yeah. Yep. But there's like a false sense of confidence too, in a way that because they try like different stuff in the beginning, right? And then, so like in the later games, they're like, oh, we're okay because we did this, so now we'll be okay. So that might be a sense of a false sense of security, but then maybe but now that they've done it so much, maybe it's just natural for them too now. So who knows? As long as you play under pressure a lot, I think it'll be good for them. So and they definitely did it now. So maybe they did it really well.
That brings up an interesting point. Like maybe in a way, maybe they're self-pressuring now that they can't play in front of these crowds, play on these high pressure situations. They maybe take it easy in quotations for the first couple games, try some things out, and then you turn it up when you're at game point and try to reverse sweep.
I'm not sure if they did,
but
I'm pretty sure they probably didn't do it on purpose.
No,
maybe they still wanted to win, but then it just happened to be like, oh, now we're like used to the pressure now. Yeah.
So I don't want a hard pivot here, but this is your softball question that you get for the show. We give everybody one softball question. This came from the vice president of the San Francisco Shock. What's up, pizzas? He also set this interview up, by the way, so shout out to him. He goes, question for Junk. Do you think the San Francisco Shock is the greatest Overwatch team of all time yet? If not, what does it take to get there?
We're the best team in the world, in the universe, in the existence.
Of all time.
Yes.
Of
all time.
In perpetuity.
And in the further future as well. We'll be yep.
I mean, in all seriousness, like if people don't think so, I would argue that you guys have the resume to be that team, and I don't think it's going to be replicated very quickly, if at all ever. Like the coaching staff, the caliber of players, the amount of those players, and the results, the consistency, and across different metas and across different, you dominated in a refinement meta. Now you're dominant. Well, you're doing very, very well in hero pools, which again is very difficult. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's difficult to be dominant in this, so you're still wiping the floor with everybody. How can you not? How can you not say this is the best team of all time? Like, I think it speaks for itself. There's not many other people that you can kind of really give that credit to. There have been good teams in the past. The Shock are a great team. They're a legendary team. They're going to be on a banner somewhere, engraved on some sort of statue in esports history, and it's going to be great. I'm happy that I get to see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing, and I think only your article really put me onto that, is that you guys haven't missed a final since March last year.
Yeah.
Like every final there was.
Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3. Again, varying results, but all within, the grand finals. And then obviously Stage 4 probably would have been there too, if that happened. Their grand finals. After coming from a pretty surprising loss against Atlanta, and then sweeping your way through, doing a mango run for those who get it. I tip my hat, but it's what do you say? You're the best.
No, you're embarrassing me.
We're cracking the irony barrier.
So there we go. Obviously, the Overwatch League, the whole format has been blown up over the past 2 months, right?
Yeah.
And we've gone from these 28 individual matches with kind of a pseudo halftime kind of mid-season break to these monthly tournaments now. How has that really changed how you guys are working now? I mean, we've got the extended hero pools. We discussed a little bit about that, but just this tournament format in general, is this something that you like as a coach and want to see moving forward? Or did you like the kind of longer, maybe, I don't want to say less impactful games, but the immediate impact wasn't, or the stakes weren't apparent week to week. It was only after a month of playing games, you're like, holy cow, this team really went up or really went down.
I mean, we still got to see like the stage finals last year, though, right? So I mean,
so last year we did, but yeah.
This
first
year we're
part of
just kind of getting, you know, obviously with the melee and now with the summer showdown. Is that a format that you kind of like, where there's a little bit more stakes in the line, you have like a direct opponent, it's not just, you know, what's scheduled on and on. Like, is the tournament structure something that you appreciate, or is it more the regular season, just kind of everyday match?
I think at this point where we have the monthly tournament, it almost feels similar to the stage finals. So at that point, it's more similar. I think that the pacing of but then the pacing of like how much you wanna change the team because of the hero pulse or because of the patch. It's like different. The pacing is different. How much directly we wanna like revamp the players, or like the ideology of it. It's like the pacing is a bit different. It's like much more faster, much more stressful. But I think it's still more for fun for the players. But then like the structure of the tournament itself feels, for me personally, similar with the stage finals and the monthly. Yeah.
A lot of some of the coaches that we've spoken to have addressed a potential problem with that tournament structure, and that's the loser pick and how wide the map pool is. Is that something that you kind of are stressed out about? Is that something that you kind of hope changes in the future, where we have
one more time?
Yeah. So the tournament structure itself, in results, when you have to pick. When losers have to pick the map, the map pool so wide, is that difficult for the shock or just, you know, coaching in general, to kind of have or practice for all of the maps basically?
I mean, the map, it was like that for the stage finals as well, right? So the losers have to pick the map. So for me, like the tournament structure itself, for me, it feels similar. So yeah,
fair enough.
Some coaches have expressed to us like yes, hero pools was stressful. But the most stressful week, especially probably also for those that didn't have high seats, was the week before the tournament, because the stakes are higher. If you go far, like for a lot of these lower teams, it's like this win actually can make or break your season, the additional one that you're getting, because then you theoretically can catch up and get into the play-ins or whatnot. How was this week up to the May melee for you?
No, actually, the previous weeks are way more stressful for me. What was it? When what I said earlier about like when we didn't know like the tracer tracer Echo Ash was the best, and then like Orisa Sigma was the best best tanks. Before like we standardized that, like every week was just a mess. But once at that point we knew which heroes are strong, much easier. Like less uncertainty. Like the uncertainty is what stresses out the most. But now once there was some kind of certainty, like that's now the stakes are higher. That we could have that kind of stress. But for me personally, I don't think much about those kind of stuff.
You just execute. You show up. You do your job, and as long as you know what your job is to do.
Yeah. That's what worries me the most. What are we playing? It's what we're doing the best. It's what we're doing strong. That's what stresses me. Not like the stakes or any of those.
Well, then let's hope that nothing comes along that clearly beats that Tracer Echo.
I mean, no. I think it might get changed now. It's like
true.
We get the Genji patch. We have other patch. So nobody knows until we scrim.
Do you think even with this hero pool, talking about specifically this hero pool, do you think it's kind of open to the map and there isn't just like a hard and fast meta, or do you really think that like trash, yeah. Thank you, Sideshow, for putting that in my head. Ash Tracer is like the go-to, and you can kind of play that on almost any map.
No, it's usually maps has always been like a deciding factor for what hero gets played. So the maps do definitely have a lot of impact. But Tracer hero and the Ash hero itself is like very volatile, very adaptable. So usually you can play it, but certain maps, let's say like a Widow. I mean, Widow is like still best sniper.
Pretty good, yeah.
So if it's just you'll use Ash when you can't use Widow or something like that. It's like
gotcha.
So in the end, it is map dependent on what gets played.
Yeah, like in the pre-show we talked a little bit about the Packing's philosophy, and I want to run this by you. because I think, and I'm doing the Joe thing where I'm going to like completely from what I know of him project that and make an irrational assumption of what is actually happening. Of course, packing is not lazy. Packing is the opposite.
Complete
So
opposite.
I think not only does he like hero pools and 1 week hero pools to a degree, because I think like he has completely embraced the aspect that he's going to be working insane hours. He actually likes that aspect because he can outwork other coaches that way. How do you think about that? And of course, then again, this is actually me saying that. That's not packing saying that. That's the packing in my head that's saying that.
Okay. Well, like, I think coaching is like one of those things. Well, just not just coaching, but for players, for including the players as well. Just reading the game in general, I think actually has nothing to do with the amount of hours you put in. Like some people can watch a VOD for 20 hours and then they don't see it. Some guys can see it for 1 minute and they see it. So it has nothing to do with hours, I feel like you can there's like at least like a minimum amount of hours you should put in, since you have to watch every match. You have to watch, you gotta analyze actually see what each hero is doing in every match. But then like there's like there's just a minimum amount of hours you can put in. The more it just depends on your ability.
Do you feel comfortable quantifying that? How many hours everyone's putting in, and if that's variable, and maybe for you personally?
It's so variable. Like for me, like I see it very fast, so I don't have to like sit there and look at what Tracer's doing. Like I don't have to look at it 5 times over and over. I can just like look at it once, and then I'll be able to tell like what it was trying to do. So for me, it's like much faster. So it's so like variable. I feel like some people has to watch the same thing 5 times to see what they're doing. Some people can just watch it 1 time. It's so hard to quantify it.
Do you think that would change at all if you weren't on a team like the Shock that is obviously doing very well, very consistently, and so you had to maybe watch players who weren't as on top of their game and as consistently on top of the standings?
I mean, it'll probably stress me out more, and then, but then like what I'll be doing is probably still be about the same. Like I'll just like stress over it more, and then what's more stressful is so let's say your player's doing bad, and then you look at other team, you see what they're doing, you were able to interpret what the purpose was, and then we do the same thing, and if we still, when we did our thing we lose, we did the other team thing we still lose, that then it gets where it gets like super like you can get lost. But then usually doesn't happen. Like your player has to be super bad for them to be doing the same thing what other team is doing and then still not be able to get like the minimum value out of it. That means your player's like that usually never happens. So
this is a man that's really well treated by the Rossies playing, because there's definitely coaches that bring up the same thing probably in a course of 2 months 20 to 40 times, and it's still not working. So
then that's a different story. That means that's not your player's strength. Then you can look at other stuff, like, because there's so many. There's not just one interpretation. There's like other interpretation. So there. I feel like this is my thoughts are like there's no bad players in Overwatch League. Everyone's a top 500 player. Everyone can pull off the mechanics of what they're given. But if they can't pull off one thing, they can at least pull off the other stuff. There has to be like at least one play that they'll be able to pull off. So like as long as like, so that's why the more ideology you have, the more concept you have in your head, and then it's about applications. So like the more you apply different ideas, the more flexible you get. But if you just have one idea and then you just force it onto a player, and then if they can't do it, then you're just stuck with that.
So for lower rated teams, then some of those, bottom 5, bottom 6 teams, I won't single anybody out there. Like, I feel like there's kind of an implication there that you're saying that those lesser performing teams don't really have player issues. They have like coach and strategy issues.
That could be one factor, or there's so many things in a team that could be happening. Like it could be the management, it could be the environment, it could be the player issue. There's just work ethics or their personality or whatever. There's so many factors that you can't never fully know what's wrong with the team unless you're in the team.
But it's just not a raw talent issue.
The raw talent, I feel like every player is good. It's just some are better than others. Our players are better than others, but everyone's mechanically good.
So your goal is never to teach perfect Overwatch, but to teach the perfect version of Overwatch for your individual team. Is that an accurate summary?
If you can't pull up the perfect Overwatch,
yes, yeah,
then you gotta pivot to what's perfect for your team. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of run something by you, Junkbuck, that Sideshow kind of postulated and thought about in the GOATS meta. He kind of said that the GOATS meta taught us how to really play, or taught teams how to play really, really well as a team. What would you say? I have my ideas, but I'm interested to hear yours on what the hero pool kind of era of Overwatch is teaching us for the future. If we were to remove hero pools right now and just leave it as is, what do you think you would come out the other end? What would be an attribute that you feel like you've gained from this?
I think one thing that was really good from the hero pool was like people definitely experiment more. Like we play comps that we never thought of that was possible. Like even last week, like Winston Sigma, like what kind of combination is Winston Sigma? But it's actually good, right? It could be good. It could be good. So and then what else? Like Ryan Sigma, like what's that's not Rush, that's not Poke, what is that? But it's but it's actually really good comp too as well. So we come because I'm like my weakness is that I'm not a very creative person. Like I'm good at knowing I'm good at like identifying what's good, what's bad, and applying different ideas. But then those ideas are not my unique idea. It's just ideas that I interpret from other teams. So I'm not a creative person, but then so I can't think of those kind of like new Ryan Sigma or things like that. So in that sense, the other teams were able to like so creatively come up with ideas that I'll be like that I won't be able to think.
Okay, so let's maybe I don't know how John is pacing, but maybe like as a closing topic, I want to talk a little bit about player character, maybe, and maybe because like we continuously talk about that in like Western media and Western communities. It is a problem that we have like a couple of bridges over to the Korean players, but not a lot, right? Like we generally don't know what these players are like. So, for instance, one player that as a person is an enigma to me on your team is Violet. Where I just know this kid has crazy aim. He's also like an insane grinder apparently because of all his letter counts, and that is pretty much what I know about Violet. So can you add anything to that?
Well, so a lot of our guys are actually super funny. Like even Krusty is super funny. The guys as a whole, like our team is a very funny team. Like I'm not sure if you ever seen like Violet's or the stream, but then like Violet's like super competitive, right? So like he hates losing. He'll constantly demand the team to do certain ways. Like he can be almost like flaming at his teammates, but it's like super competitive. It's like he's that kind of guy. He's also like, so the guys already I think our players are talked about a lot, but then it's like people, all of our guys like really make fun of him a lot of how dumb he is in like general life. So he's like, so Violet's like one in a like a 1,000 or million character.
Yeah.
Like it's super unique. He's like super different.
Nice.
Who else is there?
Striker is another enigma to me.
Yeah, the striker is like so like very emotional, hyper emotional. So he's also super. So one thing is like I think all the competitive players are good at the game. they have to get like super pissed whenever they lose. Those are the guys who gets like super pissed whenever they lose. But then they're also like Striker's also a huge troll though. So he's like a super troll. He likes to constantly make fun of other people. He'll play on Secret Smurf to troll on our guys, things like that. And then other guys streams a lot, so I think the people will be able to see those other guys a lot more. Yeah. Our team was like super. And then what was it? The guys are, because we have like a English and Asian team. The one thing that I'm super grateful is the usually the guys like make an effort to like get close with each other a lot. So I think that team culture itself, like how we were able to become like super close, our team culture itself was like super great in that sense, where all the guys really made an effort. Even back in like last year's Natra was like super close with all the Korean guys as well, and then super like all the time makes an effort to get close with Smurf as well. You know how they're competitors, but they always like comfort each other. They're like a really good teammate for each other. So I think not a strong sense of competition. I have to like beat this guy. It's more like camaraderie.
Yeah. Is there like, this is a topic like I've written about it, and I never really knew who to locate as that person. And it's very possible that your team doesn't even have that one. But usually there's like a player in each team that is either like the glue player that just makes everyone comfortable and like tries to de-escalate situations, or also someone that just says in comms, okay, reset, like stop talking, we're like refocusing the place. Like an emotional leader is the word generally loose. Is there someone on your team that does that?
Well, I'm not sure about glue, but I think the guys who are like mentally really strong, like Super, Choi, Moth, they're like whenever someone's down, they're like, it's okay. Like they're like that reset mentality. They're like always, oh, it's okay. They're like they never tilt, they never fall. Like no matter, like, cause it's yeah, those three guys are especially good at that. They're mentally really strong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Are we out of topics? Do we hit it? Do we hit them all?
I think it's a good close.
I think we hit them.
I think we've taken
time. We got like, ooh, not bad for like figuring it all out in like 45 minutes and being like, all right, let's do it. We're doing it today. But we did it. Chat, thanks for hanging out, by the way. A ton of fun. Junkbuck, thank you so much as well for just hanging out and just like chatting with us, having fun. Very insightful, very informative, and just kind of fun too. Some of these coaches, I won't say who, are just kind of boring to talk to, but this hasn't been one of those.
No.
Oh, thank God. Hope I didn't make it too boring.
No, this was very insightful. This was fun to pick your brain.
There's a lot that I took away from just like when I want to brood over and just like maybe reconceptualize what I think about Overwatch. Definitely.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get out of here. Before we do though, Junkbuck, we always love to get, whenever somebody comes on representing a team, we like to give you an opportunity to give a message out to the fans, all the Shock fans out there. I'm a Bay Area resident, so I'm a Shock fan too. So it's like you're talking to me. It's like you're speaking right to me. But just any messages to the fans who are tuning in, supporting the Shock this year.
It might sound generic, but then the everyone here is here because you guys are here. Actually, we can't exist without the fans. All the guys actually really appreciate your support. They really wants to play in front of you. The more of you are out there, the guys are more motivated. Right now, one of the things that stresses out the guys is because they can't play in front of the fans. It's like that's why one of the big reasons why the guys might get demotivated. They want to play in front of you guys. They really love your support. They really appreciate your support. Thank you guys.
I was looking forward to going to both of the homestands here this year. I was getting. I went to one of the watch parties, and I was getting ready to. I was gonna get like the VIP packages and stuff that they had here, and then, the whiff of COVID happened, and then it was just like, oh, better wait and see how this turns out. So big bummer, but I'm excited for homestands too. Junkbuck, like, where can people find you? Any other shout outs that you might have? All that kind of stuff.
Nothing in particular. Just watch our games, watch our player support streams, and support them. That's all.
Fair enough. Will do. And that's Junkbuck OW on Twitter, right? Do you do a lot of like Twitter social media?
I don't go there that much. But then once in a while I'll tweet something about certain stuff. But yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough. New patrons, Joe. What's going on there, man?
So for new patrons, we have Luke B and Chunk, who upgraded their pledge, and I believe now is a patron producer. Is that correct?
Not quite.
Not quite, but upgraded the pledge though, and that's
still super generous. Yeah.
Yes, very
Chunk
much
is
so.
the best. I love Chunk.
A name that is in the community quite a lot and is popping around, regardless of how much you give. We appreciated it all the same, and thank you so much.
Cool. And then Yiska, we got some new subs, right?
Yep. Thank you, Skeptical Kyle. Anko,
Clyde.
also friend
you
of
do
the
this every time. It's
Oh,
Clyde.
man.
That is Clyde.
Yeah.
It's Clyde.
I do this every time. Yeah.
Jeez.
There was even something in the back of my mind just going, okay, you did it again. Anko, friend of the show. Then, okay, the XCXMA. Thank you for the sub. Buzzy, 907.
These are so hard to say.
Reeked Dog? Is that how you? Reeked?
Possibly.
And then Hunter Tane. Thank you for 5 gifted subs.
Yes. Big thank you.
Yeah, Hunter Tane coming in huge. Thank you so much. As for the show, you can find the show everywhere. Twitch.tv/Kickedtripod, YouTube.com/TacticalCrouch. Big thank you to our patron producers, Battlecrab Pin Lotion, Charlie L, Audio Compass, Pork Chop, Sammy, Conscious67, Kuchikopi, Shara Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Refined Bean, Rex Zane, Roger B, Fabled Steven, Owen. And a special shout out to Chonk again for just being a badass.
Yes.
If you like the show, support it for free by going to iTunes, leaving a 5-star iTunes review. Otherwise, leave a sub right here, twitch.tv/Kickedtripod, or go to Patreon. We do appreciate it a ton. Shout outs for the week. And where people can find you, I'm going to go first again. I've done this a few weeks, but shout outs to Corey, VP of Shock, who set this up with Junkbuck. Really appreciate it. You guys have been awesome to work with, and so I really appreciate helping support our little show. So thank you so much for doing that. You can find me everywhere at Kickedtripod, and I've got my own YouTube channel now, youtube.com/John Horseman, but I'm switching it to Kickedtripod as soon as I can. So that's going to happen. Posted a video today, so yeah, you can definitely go check that out. Joe, what about you? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
You can find me on all the socials everywhere. It's all over the place. You can make do with it what you, or if you want to even follow. This week, a little bit of Valorant, a little bit of Overwatch. Gonna be talking about some things and stuff. Stay tuned.
All right, sounds good. Yiska, what about you? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
Today I wrote like a little bit of a more funny recap because I realized like there's only so much people that really care about like analyzing or just like having actual, like gameplay takeaways. So I try to lighten it up a bit, try to very much sort of take a little bit of the Scrim Bubble Stock Exchange type of, tone away from it and put my thoughts out there to the things that happened, because I think we actually had a quite entertaining week, both from the games that we saw, from the peaks that we saw, promising for the future, but also it was pretty spicy if we think about what kind of stories were circulating. So that was all put into that piece. You can find it on GG Recon. I'm excited. Wednesday, I'll have a feature piece. I already got all the pieces I need. Just need to write it up. So look forward to that.
Cool. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Chat, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it. Hope you had a ton of fun. We're going to get out of here on behalf of myself, Yiska, Joe, and Junkbuck. Have a great one. We'll see you Wednesday for our week 3 preview episode. Until then, bye.